Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Chef Deborah from Greensboro, North Carolina and Rocca's Bakery. Today we're going to be making an Italian lemon ricotta pound cake, and it's absolutely delicious. And we've got lemon 3 different ways. We've got lemon zest, we've got lemon juice, and we've got limoncello. So we're going to make this wonderful cake. And we're going to start with 1.5 cups of cake flour. We're going to put into our sifter. Even though cake flour is a very soft flour, it's a very tender flour and it makes for a tender cake. We like to sift it with all of our ingredients. And we have with this 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and that's all of the dry ingredients that we have. And we're just going to go ahead and sift it on a parchment paper. Now, you remember from my other episodes, parchment paper is readily available in the grocery store by the sheets. If you want to do this over a bowl, you can most certainly do that. But we're going to get ahead and get this sifted, and then we're going to cream our wet ingredients together. But I like to have everything ready to go, so when I start creaming, I don't have to stop and lose the air that I've already put into the butter and sugar mixture. And this ensures that all of the dry mixture is well incorporated together, but also even with cake flour, sometimes we get little lumps, as you can see in here, and we want to get all of those lumps out. Now when we sift, we don't want to take like this little bit that's left over and dump it in the trash, because it alters the recipe. Even a tablespoonful of flour can change the recipe. So we want to be sure that we get it sifted all through, tapping. Now the salt is regular table salt. I do not recommend kosher salt unless it's fine ground, because the kosher salt normally that you find in the grocery store is a coarse ground, and that doesn't dissolve as readily as it does a regular table salt. So we're looking at regular table salt. So we're done with our dry ingredients. We'll add that in a little bit. So what we're going to do is take 1.5 sticks of butter, or 3/4 of a cup of room temperature butter. It's important that it's room temperature so that it incorporates well and aerates well with the sugar. We've got 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, white sugar, and we're going to go ahead and get this going. We started out on slow until the butter starts mixing a little bit together with the sugar, and we're going to cream this well. Now creaming means we're just combining the butter and the sugar, and we're going to mix it or cream it until it is light and fluffy. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that home bakers make when making cakes, even pound cakes, is that they don't cream the butter long enough. It's really important that it gets to a light, fluffy texture. So we're going to increase the speed a little bit here. And in about a minute, we're going to stop and we're going to scrape the bowl, and then we're going to start it again. And right now, it's kind of clumpy and it's not mixing well together, but it will in just a couple of minutes. So you could expect the creaming process to take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. So, you know, the butter at room temperature, you can press the butter and you could leave an imprint, but if it goes down any further if it's really super soft, it will change the texture and the outcome of your cake batter. So if you get the butter too soft, pop it in the freezer for a couple of minutes to harden it up a little bit. It's better if you plan on making a cake in a week or a couple of days to pull a couple sticks of butter out of the refrigerator and just let it sit on the counter. It won't go bad, it'll be fine. We're going to stop and scrape the bowl down, and I'll pull out some here so you can see. So right now the texture is still sandy and it's not aerated, it's not light and fluffy, so we've got to keep it going until we see the kind of texture that we want to see. So I'm going to turn it on medium speed, and we're just going to let that go. So I'll talk about the other ingredients. So we have 1.5 cups of whole milk ricotta cheese. And it's important that it's whole milk. If you use a part skim, the cake won't be as rich. You can use part skim ricotta, but for me, I think if you're going to make a wonderful pound cake like this and add all these fresh ingredients and the limoncello, then you need to use whole milk ricotta. And we have 3 large eggs at room temperature. Again, everything is at room temperature. So if we would add the ricotta cheese that is cold out of the fridge to the creamed butter mixture, it would cause it to change temperature and lose some of the emulsification or the aeration that we have in the butter sugar mixture. I don't know if you could hear the change of the sound of what's in the mixer, but it stopped clumping against the sides of the bowl, and now it's starting to aerate more, and you don't hear as much noise in the bowl. So even if you can't see it, you can hear the change that is happening. So let me stop the mixer and I'll show you how the texture and the color has changed. So you can see, but we need to go a couple minutes longer even on this. So, and the aeration or the creaming process of any cake, if it's not an oil-based cake, if it's a butter, sugar-based cake, we need to follow this process. Sometimes we get impatient, we want to slam the mixer on high, and that'll just beat it too much. So if you get too much air in it, your cake will have what we call tunneling inside when it's baked, and you can see little holes in the cake, and that's because too much air has been put into the creaming process. So we don't want that either. So there's this happy sweet spot when you're creaming butter and sugar together before you start adding the eggs. I think that looks pretty good. Now, if I was making a white cake, and so you can see how fluffy it is, and it's turned into a really light pale butter color. So that's what we're looking for. So we're going to go ahead and start adding the eggs. But scrape the bowl down really good. Make sure that sometimes, especially with the KitchenAids, we have that little hole at the bottom. It tends to hold the product there, but especially butter, that doesn't get quite incorporated. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to go ahead and put the mixer back up. And we're going to slowly incorporate the eggs one at a time. And we're going to let that completely mix together before we start adding the second or the third egg. So at this point, I'm just going to stop the mixer and we're going to scrape it down to make sure that the eggs are mixing well with the butter and sugar. We're going to let that go for about 30 seconds or so. And then we're going to be adding our extracts and our juices. We'll leave the limoncello for the last. So I've scraped the bowl down, and we're going ahead and add the 1.5 cups of ricotta cheese into this mixture. And we just mix it till combined. We don't have to whip it. We just want to combine because we've already aerated the butter and the sugar. Let me show you what it's supposed to look like. Now, it will look like it's a little bit curdled, like this, but that's exactly what you want to see. Nothing is wrong with the batter. It's the ricotta cheese, and the ricotta cheese isn't a smooth cheese, or a creamy cheese, so that's perfectly what it's supposed to look like. So we'll make sure that all of it's scraped down and incorporated. We're going to turn the mixer on low again, so we have a teaspoon of vanilla, which gives it a little bit of a warm taste, and we're going to go ahead and put in 2 teaspoons or maybe a whole tablespoon. It's really the zest of a couple of lemons is what I put in there. Depends on the size of the lemon. So I'm looking for about a tablespoon of lemon zest, and we have a couple tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. So once you zest your lemons, just cut them in half and squeeze them. We don't want any seeds, so make sure we don't have any seeds in the cake. And this is a couple of tablespoons of limoncello. And you can find limoncello in the liquor store, at home. In Greensboro, it's in the liquor store. I don't know here in New York where they sell it, but I'm sure the liquor store has it. So right now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this in a couple of increments. So this is the cake flour, the dry mixture. We don't want to dump it all in at once. We just want to incorporate about half at a time on low speed. So we've got our dry ingredients incorporated. So basically at this point our cake is done. So I'm going to just take it off of the paddle, and we're going to fold a couple of times, 2 or 3 or 4 times, to make sure that all of the ingredients are incorporated well together before we put it into our cake pan. So I've got a loaf pan here that's been sprayed with Baker's Joy, which of course is a fat spray that has flour in it so that our products don't stick to the pan. If you don't have Baker's Joy, you can certainly use butter. And then I sprinkle the inside of the pan with sugar and then tap out the excess sugar. So you can see now that we're just finishing incorporating the dry ingredients, because this is cake flour, and cake flour has a much lower protein content than regular flour does. Usually about 10 to 11%, sometimes even lower depending on the brand. We don't want to beat this too much because it will activate the gluten and the cake could become a little tougher than what we want. So right now it's folded well, and this is what our batter should be looking like. Nice creamy, but again you can see the ricotta cheese in it, so it's not going to be creamy like another type of cake batter because we have a lot of ricotta in it. So you just pour the cake batter into the pan, and this is a really quick cake to throw together if you need a dessert in a hurry. It does take about an hour to bake, so you do have to allow for the bake time. But as far as prepping it, if you have all the ingredients at home, you got your limoncello in your bar and your liquor cabinet, you got a couple of lemons or even lemon extract. If you don't have the fresh lemons, that's fine too. So I've thrown this together so many times quickly. If we ran out of cakes at the bakery and we needed another cake for the cake plate, we went ahead and did that. So normally I put this on like a cookie sheet if you have it, just to protect the pan a little bit more in the oven to bake. If you don't have that, that's fine as well. But that's what we do in the bakery. So we're going to bake this at 350 degrees. Like I said, for about an hour, and then start testing it. I would start testing it about 45 minutes, just so that you don't overbake it. But because there's so much ricotta cheese in here, and we've got 3 eggs, and we've got the butter, it's really hard to overbake it to the point where it's really dry. But just be mindful and set your timer. So we're going to get this in the oven and let it bake, and then we're going to go ahead and when it's cooled, take it out of the pan, and we're going to soak it with limoncello and make a glaze to put over it. So we'll see you back shortly. So our limoncello pound cake is done. It's cooled and we put it on a nice board. So I'm going to do a limoncello soak. So we've also got limoncello in the cake, but I'm just going to drizzle a little bit over the top. Now if you want to use a pastry brush, if you don't want to have that much limoncello in your cake, by all means just lightly brush it, but we like limoncello, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to put some of it in the glaze. So we've got about a cup of powdered sugar here in our bowl, and we're going to add the rest of the limoncello in here, and we're going to stir it up. And when you're making the glaze, it doesn't take but maybe a couple tablespoons, if that, of liquid to turn the glaze into the texture that we want. So we want to be sure that it's stiff enough that we can drizzle, but it's not going to just completely run off the cake. We want it to stick a little bit. So, and my staff in the bakery kitchen, they tell me that I never get a big enough bowl because I'm always throwing, when I'm making glaze, I'm always throwing it everywhere, but it's a messy job, but it wipes up quickly. So as you can see, I'm just going to add like maybe a teaspoon more, and that should probably give us the consistency that we want for the glaze. Now this cake can be fragile, so make sure that it's cooled completely. Cool it in, when it comes out of the oven, cool it for about 15 or 20 minutes in the pan to make sure, and then invert it. Take a plate or another pan and invert it like this so that it doesn't break, and then put it on a rack and let it completely cool. Don't try to move it until it's completely cool, otherwise it can fracture a little bit. And this is still a little thick, so we're going to add maybe a half a teaspoon more of powdered sugar. I think that'll give us what we're looking for. Now when I'm glazing donuts, I have a little secret ingredient that I'll share with you. I put about 2 tablespoons of light Karo syrup in the glaze, and it gives it a nice super glossy sheen that sticks to the donuts really well. So what we want to do is just drizzle this glaze over the cake, the whole length of the cake. Now what I've done before as well, if you want a different kind of presentation, you can thin it out a little bit more and completely cover the cake and take an offset spatula and spread it around. But for today we'll do something a little more rustic and fun since it's on a board. Now you can bake this cake in little mini bundt pans. A lot of women have those in their kitchen, or men if you're the baker in the house. You can certainly bake this cake in little mini bundt pans, but you need to alter the bake time because the bake time is much less time. So if you're doing mini bundt pans, you're probably looking at, start checking at 20 minutes. So it reduces it significantly. So we're going to use all this glaze and just drizzle it like that. And there's our finished product. Let me see, get some glaze there. This is our Limoncello Ricotta pound cake. So we're going to go ahead and cut and plate our limoncello pound cake, and I usually serve very thick slices of this pound cake because it's just so delicious. So that's our pound cake. Now if you bake it in a smaller pan, it'll be a taller cake, but this is perfect with a cup of espresso or a cup of tea, whatever your preference is, for a midday snack or evening dessert. Glass of sweet Marsala wine or your choice of dessert wines. So this is Chef Deborah from Greensboro, North Carolina at Rocca's Bakery. Visit us on our online store at roccasbakery.com and look for our limoncello cake.